Hi, I'm Kathleen Carlson. This is probably the fifth or sixth video in my series on sacred flowers. As some of you know, I was an artist before I was a musician, so I have a deep interest in both sacred symbols as well as healing sounds. And flowers, I think, are just some of the most incredible things on this planet. I mean, if there's anything that's more uplifting than a beautiful bouquet of flowers, I don't know it. So today we're talking about foxglove flowers. Now these flowers are a little mixed because they have both positive connotations and negative connotations. And foxglove flowers are popular around the entire world, and they're also associated with both the sacred and with magical things around the world. The reason why foxglove flowers are said to sometimes hurt and sometimes heal is because the digitalis that is part of the foxglove chemistry, it can be used as digitoxin, which is a heart stimulant. So it can be used for healing, for heart conditions, but it's also very poisonous. So we'll get into that a little more a little later. So if you're a flower lover, or you just love sacred symbols in general, or the whole realm of healing with sound and color and form, please do subscribe and send the video over to a friend. So let's get going. Foxglove. First of all, there are a lot of different slang terms associated with foxglove. So some of these are positive, again, some of these are negative. The most common is foxglove flowers are an abbreviation for folks' gloves. Now these folks are referring to the fairy folk, which in the past were actually more mischievous beings than what we think of now. Now we think of them more as the leprechauns and in a positive sense. Another possible origin of the word foxglove is an ancient instrument called a foxglue, G-L-E-W. So that's another possible origination for the flower name. Some of the negative slangs for foxglove are a sexual indication because of the shape of the flower, mimicking the female reproductive organs, or the negative aspects of the poison that's part of it. So it's sometimes a slang for street drugs, for example. Another theory for foxglove is the idea that a fox could use the tiny little bell-shaped flowers to cover his paws when he's going to raid a chicken coop, and that would also protect him. So back to the fairies. The fairies actually come in many sizes and shapes. They can be called pixies, elves, or brownies. Rumor has it that picking the foxglove flower will harm the fairies in some way, but this tale might have been told to children simply to keep them away from the potentially poisonous plant. Fairies do exist in a realm that is slightly different from our normal waking reality, and certain people are able to see them or hear them. I come from a long line of Celtic and Irish women, and some of my ancestors were able to hear the fairies or see them, and they had psychic abilities. They could read tea leaves, for example, to tell the future. So this is a topic that is dear to my heart as well. The foxglove also is connected to various religions, in particular Catholicism. I was also raised Catholic. And in the medieval days, there would be gardens that were called Mary Gardens with a beautiful statue of Mother Mary, and people could go there, pray, meditate, and all of the flowers in the garden would have an association with Mother Mary. So some would be like Mother Mary's earrings to adorn Mother Mary as a crown, and also marigolds were part of that because those were Mary's gold, flowers that were offered to the Virgin Mary in lieu of money, especially if someone didn't have gold to give. So ladies' gloves was another name, or the Virgin's gloves, for the foxglove flower, and that was part of that association. Very formal Mary Gardens had hundreds of different flowers, each with an assigned symbolism, and they were arranged in a certain way. One of the things that we have that still comes down through that tradition is the crowning of the May Queen. So usually the 1st of May, I did this once when I was about a freshman in high school. So a young girl usually would be selected from the congregation or the parish, and you would crown the May Queen, and that was Mother Mary. So it was just a beautiful tradition honoring Mary as the mother of Jesus. So those flowers included foxgloves, also roses, lavender, daisies, and many of the others that have a connection to Mother Mary. To round out our discussion of the different names of foxglove, let's take a little closer look at the digitalis issue. Digitalis is a powerful chemical that can alleviate heart conditions if used correctly. For example, digitalis can regulate fast or irregular heartbeats. Thus, it's prescribed for patients with arterial fibrillation, for example. For those with fibrillation or other related heart conditions, digitalis can be life-saving. However, it is so poisonous that there are children who have died from drinking the water from a vase that had had foxglove flowers in it. So it really has meanings on both ends of the spectrum. Because of the danger of foxglove flowers, because of that digitalis, they have also been called dead man's bells and witches' gloves. Now let's take a closer look at the philosophical meanings, especially the meaning of foxglove flowers in the Victorian flower language. So during the Victorian days, emotions were not freely expressed, especially romantic emotions, but also in friendship. It wasn't part of what was accepted socially. So an elaborate language based on flowers became a way to communicate. So flowers hidden in a handkerchief that was given to someone, or the flower that you wore when you went to see someone would indicate if you wanted friendship or if you wanted romance, that kind of thing. So in that tradition, flowers mean both insincerity and immortality. So again, you have a mix of the positive and the negative, or the fortunate and the unfortunate, in the meaning of this particular flower. To complicate matters further, the color of the flower also dictates at least part of the meaning of the flower. And this is true of just about every flower. So a pink rose is something a little different than a red rose. A yellow rose is friendship. Red rose would be romance, passion, that kind of thing. So for foxgloves, they come in white, yellow, pink, and purple in general. In the modern era, there are different hybrids that are now mixed colors, but traditionally a foxglove was one particular color. In other words, now we have some where the petals are a mixture or a gradation of two different colors, going from yellow in the center to pink at the edge, that kind of thing. But if you're talking about the pure colors, then we have white, and most white flowers symbolize purity, contemplation, and innocence. Many white flowers are also night flowering, so they're also associated with the moon. So that's feminine energy. You can use white to give breathing space in your garden or in a bouquet because it sort of offsets the intensity of the other colors. White is also appropriate for memorial flowers. Yellow flowers are often the herald of spring. Sunshine yellow flowers symbolize friendship and cheerfulness. Yellow flowers can clear away the sluggishness of the winter and symbolize spring. They also indicate a sense of humor, fun, and optimism. Pink flowers symbolize love, healing from grief, and also healing from anxiety or emotional trauma. Pink is related to warmth, to gentleness, to beauty, and an outward orientation. And the color pink is the most popular of the foxglove color flowers. Red flowers are related to passion, to desire, to vitality, and they're a great way to break up the color in a garden. However, too much red could be a little intense, and it's not the most common of the foxglove flowers. In fact, the pink, the yellow, and the purple, and the white are more common than red. Then you have the violets, the purples, the lavender, the things that are in that shade. Purple's often associated with spirituality, and in this case, that is also true. Additional meanings are charm, charisma, magical abilities or spiritual abilities. And some psychologists say that purple helps to alleviate violence, to dissipate tension, and to create harmony. Other foxglove flower meanings, especially according to ancient lore, in addition to the negative ones like insincerity, is pride. Foxglove flowers are very tall, so oftentimes a very tall flower, these can grow 2 to 5 feet high. Then they can be associated with being haughty, like they're standing there, far above all the other flowers in the garden. The same thing is true of sunflowers. Sunflowers can mean friendship and joy, but they can also mean pride or a haughtiness. Foxglove flowers can also be associated with ambition, which is closely related there. In Scandinavia, it is believed that foxes would shake these flowers and that they would ring like bells to warn all the animals in the forest if there were hunters nearby. Even further back, Roman legends link foxglove flowers to the goddess Flora. In Roman mythology, Flora touches Hera with foxglove flowers to impregnate her with the god Mars. Foxgloves are also associated with midwifery and with women's magic. Since there were elderly women and herbalists who were often serving as the midwives, the connection led to even more revealing foxglove flower names such as Granny's gloves or Granny's bonnets. Finally, the association between foxglove flowers and immortality. Foxglove flowers grow quickly, they reseed themselves, and they are very resistant to insects. So they're fairly strong, they bloom perennially, even in fairly hard conditions. Other flowers associated with immortality are bamboo, amaranth, lilac, and primrose. If you'd like to grow some foxglove flowers of your own, they do thrive in soil that is rich in iron and coal. In fact, new coal fields can sometimes be found by investigating areas where the foxgloves are growing en masse. As a general thing, foxglove flowers do grow well in temperate climates. They like part shade, sun, and shade. Foxgloves can be grown through the seeds or through division of clumps of foxglove flowers. They don't flower the first year, but they will flower the second and then subsequent years. And because, as I mentioned, they are 2 to 5 feet tall, they're fantastic for the back row of a garden to create a backdrop if you use multiple colors, so like a rainbow of color in the background of all the shorter flowers in the front. They can also be used almost like a hedge. As I mentioned, foxglove flowers often reseed themselves. They like moist soil, but also need adequate drainage. The flowers do grow quickly, and the blooms will be bigger if the foxglove flowers have been fertilized. Foxglove flowers bloom in a pyramid shape, with the lowest blossoms starting first and then opening all the way to the top, so almost like a pyramid shape. Thanks for joining on this quick tour of the sacred and magical flower of foxglove. Please do share it with a friend or your favorite gardener.